Hey guys, my name is Danish and welcome back to my channel, and today we talk about the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. I'm not going to tell the full name because it's huge and too complicated, but I'm going to have it over here so you can just look into it, and without further ado, let's get started. So we have visited Imola last year as well, and it's a legendary old-fashioned track with narrow tracks, a lot of gravel, a lot of walls. Any mistake you do, you will go into the wall or you will be out of the session. So we saw a lot of exciting stuff in this race weekend. So let's just get started with FP1. So FP1 was normal until Yuki Tsunoda went off into the gravel, but the bigger issue was Ocon and Perez having a crash. So Ocon in the Alpine and Perez in the Red Bull. Old teammates from Force India have a crash. The cameras weren't on at that time because of some technical issue, but we did get onboard footage later about the crash of the merging of two cars, and yeah, red flag for the session. The clock doesn't stop in free practice. Clock keeps counting down until the track is green again. Second red flag. Nikita Mazepin crashes at the pit exit, takes out his front wing. Another red flag. Then we come on to Saturday, FP3. Here also we have two crashes. One, Charles Leclerc crashes at the final corner at Arrabbiata 2. I hope I have something linked over here to show the Arrabbiata turns. And Max also stops his car at the start-finish straight because engine issues, which brought out the virtual safety car. We haven't even gone into qualifying or the race, and so many incidents already happened, and there was a prediction of rain for Sunday, which is probably gonna make it more exciting, but yeah, that's coming too fast, too forward. Let's get back into qualifying. Q1, Yuki Tsunoda crashes, completely destroys the rear end. He jumps the sausage curb in the chicane, spins it out, completely shattered. Red flag the situation at 12 minutes in Q1, and the clock does stop in qualifying as to not disadvantage to the other racers. That was cleaned up. That took a while, and then it was quite a normal session, and the end was not quite normal because Nikita Mazepin blocked Antonio Giovinazzi in his qualifying run because Gio was in the front starting his qualifying lap. Nikita was too close to him and overtook him at the start finish straight and ruined both of their laps. Even though if Nikita had improved on that lap, he would not have gone out of Q1, but Antonio could have gotten out of Q1, which was a bit disappointing, and Antonio was really angry at Nikita in the post interview. So the drivers who were knocked out in Q1 were Yuki Tsunoda, crash, not gonna happen. Nikita Mazepin, P19, Mick Schumacher above him, both has out obviously. Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi at P16 and P17, both Alfa Romeos out as well. So we come to Q2, again run 1 normal, run 2 normal, but in Q2 there were two new additions. So we had both the Williams coming into Q2 this weekend, which was really great for the team and did show an improvement from their previous paces in the last few years, and still a long way to go, but yeah, it's still something to celebrate on with both cars in Q2, which is really fantastic. But they stayed in Q2, but Alonso came out P15 in Q2, Latifi P14, Sebastian Vettel was having gearbox troubles and he came out P13, George Russell P12. Really great effort from him coming on the 6th row of the grid. Carlos Sainz did have some bad laps and he came P11 right out of the top 10. And there was a lot of traffic here on this track in qualifying because the last two turns it was just a traffic jam. We saw that in Monza last year as well, completely jam-packed at the end. Now coming on to Q1. So this was an interesting Q1 because the top few drivers were not the ones that you would consider to be there. So Lewis and Max was obviously there, but Valtteri wasn't there. He was really far off, down in 5th or 6th when he came out. He was not having fun in the car. He was having troubles in the first sector. So the qualifying output layout was Stroll P10, Ocon P9. Great effort from Ocon to put the Alpine in Q3. Bottas P8. That was a really disappointing session for him and a bad move from Mercedes, and I had predicted being a Mercedes 1-3 in qualifying with one of my friends when we were discussing about this, but that did not happen because yeah, 8th place, not a good look for Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, let's see how they go. Lando Norris P7, Daniel Ricciardo P6, good showing from the McLaren boys. Pierre Gasly P5, really good showing from the AlphaTauri. Charles Leclerc P4, they did show some pace, they did bring some upgrades to this race and definitely working for them. Max Verstappen was P3. This was surprising because if you have counted through the drivers right now, you know that there are only 2 more left. With Max P3, we get Perez P2, who was really close, and Lewis Hamilton came P1. But there was a wild card entry who it was supposed to happen. There was Lando Norris, who had purple sectors, and he could have come P3 if he hadn't gone out of bounds in the track and had his lap time deleted, which demoted him back to P7. That one small mistake from Lando and he moved down 3 rows of the grid. So that was disappointing for him, definitely, but really interesting qualifying and quite a lot of fun actually, but there was a lot more fun to come, foreshadowing. Now, so let's just get to the race. So even before the race day started, we had troubles with both the Aston Martin cars having overheating brake issues. They did manage to fix new brakes on Stroll's car and push him out to the grid, and he was there on the grid, but Sebastian Vettel did not meet the 5-minute countdown mark where all the wheels had to be fitted and the car had to leave the garage. So he had to start from the pit lane. So he was supposed to start from P13, but he had to start from the pit lane last. Yuki Tsunoda was already last from qualifying because he crashed out. So they repaired his car. He was in P20. Well and good for him. But the biggest kicker here was rain. It had rained in Imola, an Italian race with rain. That was exciting and so much anticipation because rain always spices things up. We saw Germany, the wreck of Mercedes, we saw Turkey, amazing. It was already starting out to be a great race weekend, and we come down to the grid to the start. Lewis in pole, Perez in P2 and Max in P3 right behind Lewis. Could get a good slipstream from the start, so lights out, and Max Verstappen started in second gear, which dulled out the torque a bit and reduced wheel spin, so he got a really good start off the line and he took Lewis Hamilton into P1 in turn 2. We don't count turn 1 because it's just a small kink in the road. It used to be a lot worse, but now it's just a flat out kink. So turn 2 is the first corner of the track, but I'm digressing, so let's continue. So after that, it was a lot of fun and the spray was really amazing because it was just blooming all the way to the top, and even on the formation lap, so many people were spinning off and Charles Leclerc spun off and had to race to the front and regain his position before the safety car line. Otherwise he would have to start from the pit lane, which was really hectic for him as well. Let's continue. And lap 1 was chaos because cold tires, wet, don't know what the grip level is of the track, and eager and trigger happy throttle pedals for a lot of the races. So we saw a lot of spins. So we saw Latifi spin out and Leclerc was slow on lap 1 because he had cold tires, but again Latifi did spin out again on on turn 14 on lap 1, and this brought out the safety car, and this was contact with Nikita Mazepin. But this is the one time when Mazepin was not at blame because he was already far enough to the edge of the track, and yeah, just contact and boom, he couldn't be blamed for that. Now this was not the last safety car of the race because we get a lot more, so let's go through all of the overtakes. And by lap 4, Bottas was P10, so he started P8, he's P10. Leclerc was P4, he's P3. Mick Schumacher crashes on the exit of the pit lane. At the end of the safety car, he was just weaving about to heat up his tires, and at the exit he was on the main straight, he crashed out into the pit wall, lost his front wing. All of the debris was right at the exit of the pit lane, so they couldn't open the pit lane for him to go into the pits to repair his wing, so he had to do 3 laps of the track without a front wing, going very slowly until they cleared out all the debris from the track so that he could enter the pit lane and exit it safely, which is a weird moment over there. Safety car ends on lap 6. Next, Sainz takes Stroll for P7 on lap 7. Sainz takes Gasly for P6, and here was like a pack of 5 cars fighting in front of each other, going forward and backward, and we got the carnage of overtakes, and in the end we got Gasly P6, Norris P7, Sainz P8, Stroll P9 and Bottas P10. Bottas was stuck behind these Aston Martin for quite a long time in the race, and he was having difficulty overtaking these guys. Tsunoda went from P14 to P20 in this same 7 laps of the race, which was really a good showing for him. Lando Norris again takes Gasly for P6, Sainz takes Gasly for P7, so both of these overtake happens on the same lap, so Gasly went down 2 positions in the same lap. We get another spin from Sainz. another mistake from him in the Ferrari. He himself was telling how many mistakes am I going to make this weekend in this car, which is really ironic. So under the safety car there was a small event that happened, that was Perez spun out and 2 cars overtook him, and the rules state that he cannot overtake any car even though he lost positions to them under the safety car, so he had to stay behind those 2 cars and give up that position, but he did overtake them and come to his original position, which gave him a 10-second penalty. Then Bottas takes Gasly for P9. Finally he's going up, and Gasly had a trouble with his tires because everybody else except Gasly and Ocon were on the intermediates and Gasly and Ocon were on the wets. Ocon did the good thing on the first safety car on lap 1 and he switched to inters, and he was right behind Gasly at the end of this. Took him a while to get into the pits and switch to the inters, but I think they were holding off to pitting and directly switched to the dry compounds and gain a lot of time there, but that didn't happen this early on and the track was still wet, and that move strategy did not work out for them. Now we get a lot of overtakes. We got Raikkonen and Giovinazzi and Tsunoda taking Gasly, again struggling with his wet tires. Vettel also takes Gasly for P14. Gasly finally pits on lap 15 all the way in P15 and comes out I think P18. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo switched places, so Daniel Ricciardo was P5, Norris was P6, and Norris said he had a lot of pace in him and he was blocked and he needed some clean air, which was code for asking the team nicely to put him in front, and the team did oblige and put him in front, and it was a pretty good solid move from them because he did show his pace and he put a lot of gap between him and Daniel Ricciardo. Vettel pits on lap 22 for dry tires, for yellow mark medium dry tires, so this was the first car to do so and they thought it was a good move, but it was around 4-5 laps too early because he wasn't gaining any time. Actually he was losing a few tenths a lap on the dry tires, where else everybody else was on the inters. And now Lewis was started to push. Max had made around a 5-6 second gap and Lewis started to push because his tires were starting to work. We saw this with Lewis because he brings down the tires to below the tread and makes it completely bald, and it's basically a dry tire at that time, and then he gets to pushing, and the hybrid dry/wet tires works for the Mercedes for some reason. I don't know they engineered this or not, but an interesting tidbit over there. Now Sainz takes Ricciardo for P6. Max pits on lap 28, so this is 6 laps after Sebastian Vettel did the first dry tire switch. Now was the perfect time, so on lap 28 Max switched to the mediums. Lewis pitted the next lap. The front right tire was a bit longer to be changed, which increased his pit time, and he came out behind Max around 2.5 seconds behind Max, which was disappointing in terms of strategy, but he was there on Max with just a lap newer dry tires, so it was going to be an interesting race between the both of them. Now everybody starts pitting, so Perez also pits. He takes his 10-second penalty and then chaos. So this is where Lewis is overtaking a back marker and he tries to go on the inside with a bit too much speed, and he goes and puts his tires on the wet side of the track and just spins out into the gravel and damages his front wing. He does keep his cool, keep the engine running, put it in reverse, bring it back out slowly out of the gravel trap, and he came out. I think it showed 6th on the timing chart, but he was actually 10th and a lap down from the leaders. But on the same lap we had I guess we can say the repeat of 2016 where 2 Mercedes cars collided. So that was Nico and Lewis. This time we had Bottas and Russell. So Bottas was overtaking Russell and Russell just put a bit of his tire on the grass and just spun and took Bottas out. Bottas hit the left barrier first, then both of them hit the right barrier, and safety car and red flag because those markers on the barriers were also damaged and a lot of debris was on track. This played out really well into Lewis's hands because even though he did make a mistake and came a lap down, with the red flag they could work on the cars, they can change tires, and the back markers can get a lap to unlap themselves and join the grid on the same lead lap, so that gave Lewis a lot of time. Now is where the recovery drive starts for Lewis. So here again we have a lot of spins again on the formation lap again for the restart, and we got Kimi spins. Max nearly spun on Arrabbiata too and barely regained his position by correcting it and coming out in front, and that did mess up his restart a bit, but he did not have any major competition because it was was Leclerc behind him and Norris behind him, so there was no Lewis over there to jump on the opportunity and get the position there right at the start. So Lewis was in P10, Max was P1. So Norris takes P2 from Leclerc on lap 35. Tsunoda spins at turn 2, just a yellow flag, he recovers. Perez spins out from P4 to P14 on lap 38. That was a big spin from Perez and a big mistake from the Red Bull boy. Stroll was having issues along with Sebastian Vettel, who were having desyncing issues from the gearbox. It was just coming out in and out of sync and not giving them constant power, because these gearboxes are paddle shifters and they are instant, and that was not happening for them. So both of these were having troubles, and Vettel did have to retire his car at the penultimate lap, but as he had completed more than 90% distance, he did classify as completing the race just a lap down. But that's me going forward. Let's continue with all the overtakes. So Hamilton takes Stroll for P6 on lap 39, so he's already at P6 in like 4 laps. Then he takes Ricciardo for P5 on lap 42. Perez takes Vettel for P12. Perez is still trying to do a recovery drive. Hamilton takes Sainz for P4 on lap 50, so he's edging close to the podium positions, and now he has Leclerc in P3 and Norris in P2. Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, both of them had red marked soft tires at the restart, so both of them are losing grip. Rest everybody had gone for the mediums, so he knew he can take Norris at one moment in the race. So then Leclerc is dropped from P3 to P4 on lap 55. Hamilton overtakes. Tsunoda gets a track limits penalty because he crossed the track limits 4 times, because you could do it 3 times and you get a waved black and yellow flag warning that if you do it again you will get a penalty. He did it a 4th time and he did get a penalty. The track limits were pretty well defined this weekend, not like last weekend which was 27 times and then 1 overtake, and all the controversy and all the biasing and all of that stuff was just an utter mess from the stewards. But this weekend it was rock solid, concise, black and white line, cross it and you get a penalty. So that was a good move from the FIA to define it perfectly in the race notes. Then Hamilton takes Norris for P2 on lap 60. So he struggled a lot with Norris, and Norris just strategically put his car right in the middle of the track at turn 2, because that is the only overtaking point on the track with the long DRS start finish straight. But in the end it was Max P1, a flawless drive from him from start. Lewis Hamilton P2, so he started P1, dropped down to P10, then recovered to P2. So it was a great recovery drive from him. Lando Norris P3, showing a great showing from McLaren with their fight with Ferrari, which is going to be a rivalry that is continuing for them. And Daniel also P4, which is a good haul of points for the McLaren boys. So this was an interesting race, and also Hamilton got the fastest lap, which did give him a 1-point lead in the championship. But damn, Hamilton P1 and Max P2 in the first race, Max P1 and Hamilton P2 in the second race. So it is sizing up to be a great championship rivalry between the two of them, with Red Bull right up there with Mercedes. And yeah, it was an interesting and a long race with a lot of stuff happening. And if you can go and watch this, you please must watch this race again, even though it's quite long, it's 2.5 hours, but I can guarantee you are going to enjoy it. It's there on Hotstar replay if you have Hotstar. There are other unfavorable means as well, if you know what I mean. You can go do whatever you want and check it out. But yeah, the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix was beautiful and I enjoyed it a lot. I'd say bring on more of these races with rain. Please God, make half the races on this grid have rain on them this year. That'll just make it so much more fun, and even that much more tricky for the drivers. But the drivers who have the greatest talents will show their strengths in the wet, where they can be called as wet weather master. So Max is good in the wet, Lewis is good in the wet, Norris has shown a lot of strength in the wet, even Stroll had shown a lot of strength in the wet, and he held off Bottas for the longest time on track. And Bottas was lapped, I guess. Yeah, Bottas was lapped in the end before the red flag happened, but just after that he can't be lapped because he wasn't in the race. So yeah, I guess that's the end of this video. It was a fun weekend for me, and if you like this video, give this video a like. Comment down below if I missed any part of the weekend where you think was a bit more substantial and should be talked about, and let's have a discussion over there. Feel free to follow me on my social media channels, which I'll be linked in the description below as well. And stay home, stay safe. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.